Zocco's Modern Life. Zocco's Modern Life.
Welcome to the Zocco's Modern Life podcast. It's a warm Monday, even though I haven't been outside yet. A warm Monday morning in Connecticut. I'm joined on the phone by Jordan Katz. If you remember, we did the March Madness podcast here on Zocco's Modern Life, and I was listening to that the other day, Jordan. We did pretty good. Our picks weren't too bad.
Yeah, we did all right. I think combined together, I think we did a good job actually predicting the upset games that were close. You know, those are the tough ones to get, the 5-12, the 4-13s that are going to actually be games rather than the ones that will be blowouts. I think we did a pretty good job on those as a whole.
Yeah, not too bad for not knowing what we're talking about. So this is the NBA Finals wrap-up and NBA preview pod. So, you know, it's been a while. But coming up, we're going to talk about, as I said, NBA Finals, Dellavedova, Draymond Green, David Lee actually making an appearance, Andre Iguodala, David Blatt, all the good stuff. And then we're going to get to the NBA draft. We'll kind of bounce around and give you some busts, talk about the overseas guys that you may not know too much about because the draft is this Thursday. So it's a good time to get into all that. I'm going to start the timer. 10 to 15 minutes on the NBA Finals, all right? If we go over, it's fine. We're trying to keep it. We're going to try not to go off track on the NBA Finals. So, as you guys know, Golden State Warriors won in 6 games. They got to celebrate in Cleveland. They looked like a completely different team after Game 3 and, you know, through the first 2 games and 3 quarters, and there's a couple overtimes in there. But through that time span, I was worried with my Golden State pick. If you know, that fourth quarter, you heard everybody talking about after the game, and it's really smart. They were like, don't let, coming into that fourth quarter, you're stepping on Golden State. Don't let them get anything going that they can carry over into the future, and that's exactly what Cleveland didn't do. And then Golden State took that fourth quarter recipe of going small and mounting that huge comeback and brought it with them into games 4, 5, and 6 and didn't look back. What were you thinking after the third quarter of Game 3, and then were you thinking anything different after they made that huge run in the fourth quarter and kind of looked like the Golden State Warriors team we were used to?
Well, Joe, first of all, I picked Cleveland in 7. I really thought that LeBron James was going to be. I really thought LeBron was going to be the difference. I thought it was going to be. I thought LeBron was going to make his teammates better. I really was shocked that J.R. Smith didn't show up for this series. J.R. Smith, as much as a bad rap that he gets, and it's rightfully deserved, when he was on the Knicks, and I got to saw him play live, it seemed like every big game or every big shot, J.R. Smith was willing to take it, and J.R. Smith made a lot of them. J.R. Smith was a big game player for this team, and yeah, he has some dumb moments, but he really, the year that they win 51 games or something like that, he had a big season for them. I really thought that this would have been one of JR's coming out parties, and he was going to really show up in this finals. That didn't happen. But the real adjustment was made after Game 3. That was made after Game 3. You mentioned going small. It wasn't as much going small as it was playing 7 guys. What Kerr decided to do was he decided to say, okay, I'm going to play 7-on-7 because my guys are quicker, they're smaller, and they're more conditioned because your guys have been playing basically a whole postseason since Kevin Love got hurt. Yep. You don't have a deep team anyway. I've got a deep team where if my guys get tired, I can rotate somebody in. So he basically matched at 7-on-7 and said, go ahead, sprint up and down the floor. When you're tired, we've got guys. We'll pull you out. It's fine, no problem. But we're going to play a ton of minutes for our starters, and we're going to beat the Cavs on talent. And that's basically what they did in the final 3 games.
Yeah, they like I said, I was nervous, and Kerr's adjustment, on the surface was, let's start, Andre Iguodala, and that's like the very like in your face adjustment. But there was so many other adjustments that Game 4 was a game like from Mars compared to what we've seen in the first 3 games. And then you're trying to figure out. So now I think there was the extra day off between games 4 and 5. So you have a whole bunch more time to think about what can the Cavs do, if anything. And it wasn't going to be personnel wise, right? You're not going to start somebody else because they literally don't have anyone else to start. So it's going to be what can Blatt come up with, and there wasn't many options. So I'm not trying to knock Blatt, but I'll knock Blatt later. But it was going to be very hard for them to make an adjustment on the level that Steve Kerr did to flip the series. I wanted to throw this at you. So he went to 7 guys. How much of that was because of Spates missing the dunk?
Actually, I think it was more because of Andrew Bogut's inability to score. Andrew Bogut was neutralized by Timofey Mozgov the whole series. Timofey Mozgov beat him offensively and defensively, and Bogut really just had nothing. So what Kerr decided to do was he decided to put 5 ball handlers on the floor, and again, what that does is that pulls Mozgov, the rim protector, out of the paint. That was Blatt's coaching adjustment in Game 5 that made utterly no sense, was when he decided to play Timofey Mozgov 9 minutes. That's not the coaching adjustment. The coaching adjustment he should have made was what he actually wound up doing in Game 6, which was rotate Thompson and Mozgov on the floor, give them the same amount of minutes, and break them up rather than playing the 2 of them together. Now, we saw a fair amount of the 2 of them together, but we also saw a fair amount of the 2 of them on the floor as the only big. That was a good coaching adjustment by Blatt, but he absolutely botched Game 5 by not playing Timofey Mozgov more, in my opinion. I really think that the difference in this series, Joe, was just I felt that Steve Kerr so won the coaching matchup because it seemed like David Blatt and the Cavs didn't actually understand how the Warriors run their offense. They tried to eliminate Steph Curry. Why? You've got to let Curry get his. Because if you eliminate Steph Curry, then when they run that high pick and roll and they dump it off to the guy that's rolling to the hoop, you've got 4-on-3 down low. You can't guard 4. You can't guard 4 guys with 3 people in the NBA.
When you're
over and over again.
Guys too. Yeah.
You might be able to do it once or twice, but you can't do it consistently for 3 games. That's too much to ask.
Yep, they were the Cavs. A great comparison. They were throwing their changeup the entire game, the entire series.
Yes.
That would have been
100%.
a good, like, Curry's killing us. Let's get the ball out of his hands once or twice just to give him a different look. And they were giving him that all game, and Curry was very content with just giving it to Draymond Green. We'll get to Draymond is on my list. We'll get to him in a minute. What the heck am I going to say?
Joe, one point before we move off of Curry. The beauty of Steve Kerr's offense is, and I described this yesterday in a conversation I was having, Steve Kerr's offense is what you played in 7th grade CYO basketball.
Yep.
It is basic passing and cutting. It is coming off a down screen. It is running off 2 screens to the opposite side. It's so basic pass and move that there isn't one true point guard. Klay Thompson can bring the ball up and initiate the offense. Draymond Green can bring the ball up and initiate the offense. Harrison Barnes, Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, the list goes on and on. They have so many guys that can initiate their offense that they don't actually have a true quote-unquote point guard that brings the ball up all the time. That is what David Blatt, for 6 games, didn't figure out.
Yeah, and we'll get to the whole Draymond Green and Curry dynamic is fascinating that the Cavs never had an answer for it. It was Draymond performing well or not was like what the series hinged on. But Mozgov in Game 4, 28 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 offensive rebounds. So, 12 of those points were probably, about him just putting the ball right back up, which is exactly what you want. So that's Game 4 when the big adjustment was made. They were playing. Mozgov played 33 minutes and Tristan played 38. So they were playing them together, and they were in the game, right? And then in the fourth quarter it got out of hand. But yep. They were in that big adjustment game. And then, as you mentioned, they go away from Mozgov, and that's one way to play it. I just don't think it was the right way to play it. If one thing which is what the Cavs did do is Golden State's going small. I like my chances. Let's go small with them and figure it out, right? And the other way to play is I'm going to stay big because that's what has gotten me here, and we're going to just yes, they're going to have the advantage on the pick and roll on the offensive, when the Golden State's on offense, but we're going to have the advantage, rebounding and on our offensive end if we play to the post. And especially with guys missing shots at the rate that they were, which was for the Cavs, which was something I've never seen in a finals. The amount of role players missing shots was almost, crazy. But
it was amazing how bad their team was the minute LeBron James got taken off the floor. The minute LeBron got taken off the floor, they looked like a team that would have won 12 games in an entire season. And it's really interesting, if the Cavs had Kyrie Irving for the entire series, Blatt would have had the opportunity to go super small, and he could have matched up with what the Warriors were doing, because he could have, in theory, gone Kyrie, Deli, Shump, JR, and LeBron. And LeBron is a good enough rim protector on his own to basically play a 5, and I think it would have been really interesting because if he has Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, you can make the case that the Cavs win this thing in 5 with the way Golden State started the series. But if he had Kyrie and he could have matched Kerr's small lineup, I wonder how that would have affected the series.
It would have been very interesting. There's no fun way to do this, because you could easily make the case that the Cavs would have won the first 3 games and this thing's over. You could also, I would like to believe that Golden State wouldn't have struggled as much offensively, because there wouldn't have been as good of a defensive lineup for the Cavs in. Kevin Love isn't the same as Tristan Thompson, and you can almost put Harrison Barnes on Kevin Love and feel a little better about it than putting Harrison Barnes on Tristan Thompson. So the matchups are all off, and then where do you hide?
Well, that's why the Kevin Love argument I don't think actually holds a lot of water, because I think that Tristan Thompson's probably better suited for this team. I think when the Kevin Love trade was made, everybody sort of took like 2 looks at it and said, really? Not just because you're trading Andrew Wiggins, but because Kevin Love just never seemed like a fit with LeBron. Even though in theory he's a better Chris Bosh because of the way he can shoot threes, right? He just doesn't have the offensive intelligence, to me, that Bosh had. And I felt that it never felt like a fit, offensively and defensively.
Yep. I just want to finish so no one gets mad at me. I said hide Kyrie Irving on defense. That was the question coming in. Kyrie played very good defense in Game 1, had that huge block. Had a couple huge blocks the moments I saw of Game 1. Kyrie played, and who knows if he could have done that, as Dellavedova couldn't do it over a series. Who knows if Kyrie could have done that and been productive offensively? So a lot of questions. The more fun question people aren't asking is, what if the Cavs had Wiggins instead of Kevin Love in this finals, and Anthony Bennett? Because I think Bennett could have played minutes in this series just as a hustle, rebounder, take up space, and I'm small enough to switch on screens guy. I think he fits in this series.
Joe, I said the entire year that the Cavs are easily the championship, easily win the championship if they don't do the Kevin Love trade, because Tristan Thompson bet on himself and won really hard.
Oh, yeah.
He proved to be exactly what the Cavs needed, both offensively and defensively. His hustle, his intensity, consistently for the 30 to 35 minutes that he played is exactly what the Cavs need opposite of LeBron James. I really felt that his contributions made that Kevin Love deal not matter. Now, hindsight's 20/20. You don't know if Tristan Thompson is staying with you past a year. So I get the Kevin Love trade, because if you hit the big 3, it works, and you're easily in the finals because the East is trash. But Tristan Thompson's effectiveness really made that Kevin Love deal basically not matter.
Yeah, Tristan Thompson's going to get paid, and I think that's why, with the Cavs, he has the same agent as LeBron James, and that was the deal all along. So Kevin Love is probably going to opt in coming off an injury, and we're getting ahead to the offseason stuff, but that's fine. Kevin Love's going to opt in coming off an injury and take the money, and then enter free agency next year when he can get a bigger deal, and that just makes sense for him, and he might leave next year to actually give it another year. But yeah, the series is completely different, and it's more interesting, I think. I mean, obviously you want as many good players playing, so having Wiggins instead of Love, looking at it now, obviously would make things better. But Yeah. All right. So we're hitting our mark. We're getting close. Draymond Green struggled the first two games. They were getting pounded that third quarter of that third game. And then the biggest thing was his inability to pass. And I just want to throw this at you quick. We're going to rapid fire some of these. Draymond Green, Dellavedova, Iggy, all that stuff. So Draymond Green's inability to pass, how much when he saw what David Lee could do, because if you remember Game 3, that fourth quarter, they put David Lee in. He's now the one making the decisions. When they double Curry, the ball gets thrown over the top to the screener. It's now David Lee who gets to take two dribbles and pass, right, instead of Draymond Green, who couldn't out of that situation. Now it's 4-on-3 with a better passer. How much do you think, with the extra time off in between games 3 and 4, Draymond Green gets to watch what David Lee did and be like, oh, so this is how you do it. And then from that point on, Draymond Green coming out of that double team on Curry 4-on-3 situation, Draymond Green looks so much better, and that was like one of the big changes in the series.
I'm sure that Steve Kerr had a film session with Draymond and showed him that. But to be honest, I think Draymond just pressed in the first 4 games. I really think he just put too much pressure on himself. For college basketball fans, they remember Draymond Green at Michigan State basically playing a point forward. So this dude knows how to pass. He knows how to move the ball. I really think that he was just in his own head and just put too much pressure on himself. Look what he did in games 5 and 6. 6, he had a triple-double. I mean, that was the Draymond Green we expected to be the difference maker the whole series. He and Tristan Thompson earned themselves so much money this offseason. I don't know if either Golden State or the Cavs in action wind up keeping the two of them.
Yes,
you brought up the point about Kevin Love opting in. I think Kevin Love might opt out. And the reason why I think Kevin Love might opt out is he might neglect the player option and then the extra money just to get out, because I think he's a little fed up. I mean, that's sort of the way it looks. But rotating off of that and going to Draymond Green, he had a terrific game 5 and 6, and he was no doubt one of the two difference makers. The second, of course, and we'll transition to Andre Iguodala, and that was Andre Iguodala and his ability to play defense on LeBron James. The individual sets that Iguodala played LeBron took the Cavs out of their offense. Yeah, LeBron got his, but LeBron's going to get his. What it did was it took the Cavs out of their offensive sets, and that was the big difference. Iguodala was no doubt about it it was either him or LeBron, in my opinion, for Finals MVP. He was such a difference maker. And, Steve Kerr said his willingness to accept the bench role was one of their keys to the season. But I felt that Andre Iguodala's ability to captain that second unit was going to be a question mark when Kerr moved him into the starting lineup. Right. But it never was, because the Cavs starters just couldn't match the Warriors starting 5.
Yeah, they had no shot. The Cavs in that regard. Iguodala was fantastic, and that was the Iguodala that I forget who offered him the contract he's on now, but it's a pretty nice contract. I believe it was like 4 years, 50 or something, which is what that's a fair contract for him, but not for him coming off the bench, right? So he really not lived up to the money, because that's not what this is about, but he played like a guy that should be starting in this league and that deserves a contract like that, at the biggest stage, and guarding LeBron was huge, and, the numbers of, LeBron with Iguodala on him compared to with him not on him, it kind of goes, comes back to that Delly and Curry thing where, yeah, Curry's whatever, 0 for 9 with Dellavedova on him, but that's a very, again, like face value way to look at this, like, maybe Curry was actually 0 for 3 with Dellavedova on him, and he missed 6 open shots when Dellavedova got beat. It was a very, both situations are, how many were layups LeBron just missed. It doesn't matter if I'm standing there or if Iguodala's standing there. It's a very way to look at it, but.
Here's the difference.
Yep.
Andre Iguodala affected the Cleveland Cavaliers offense.
No doubt.
Dellavedova didn't do anything. All Curry did was miss shots. Plain and simple. Steph Curry is a great shooter. Sometimes great shooters have bad nights. That happens. Curry had a couple bad nights. It's really that simple. What Andre Iguodala did was he forced the Cavs to play iso ball with LeBron, but which the Cavs wanted to do. But he was such a good defender solo on LeBron that the other members of the Golden State Warriors defense didn't have to come help right away. They didn't have to hedge hard on screens when LeBron would get a pick and roll off. They didn't have to come to the weak side. They could stay on their man and prevent LeBron from passing the ball. And if you've watched LeBron James throughout his career, you know that he is more Magic Johnson than he is Michael Jordan. He always makes the right basketball play. And that's why I've got to imagine that this series, him taking 30 shots a game, was just not the way he wanted to play this series. He had to. He didn't have a choice. But that's just not his game. It's not.
Yeah, and, the way to beat LeBron, and that's what everybody says, is to not let him collapse your defense and then be able to be the great passer that he is and let others also kill you, right? Because then it's unstoppable at that point. And that's what Iguodala allowed. It was Iguodala in addition to J.R. Smith not being able to hit a shot, Iman Shumpert playing with one arm, Dellavedova being Dellavedova, and James Jones and Mike Miller not having their one game of, hey, I'm not 38. That's what it came down to. And speaking of Dellavedova, I could not have smiled more, and this wasn't planned. I many times talked to my friends during, game one, he played all right, and then game two, he took the entire spotlight. Even though he scored, I have it right here, 9 points on 3 of 10 shooting and had 6 turnovers. So he was like the story. And then game 3 was when he scored 20, and that was actually one good game. He was still 7 for 17, and he was getting all the attention. And I just kept saying to my friends, when are people going to realize that, like, this is it? Like, he's not this good. Like, he's going to get paid this summer probably by someone other than Cleveland, just because, there's potential, I guess you can say, and it's on the biggest stage, and that's fine, but Dellavedova isn't the guy we should be talking about in the NBA Finals. And then, games 4, 5, and 6, he kind of came back down to earth, but it was just killing me that storyline was Dellavedova. And real quick, I'm off of this, so go ahead.
You already see that Matthew Dellavedova is going to be the worst contract of the offseason. You can already see it coming.
Oh,
he's a nice role player.
That.
He's a good He's a good guy to have in the locker room, but he's not a starting point guard. Right. I don't even know if I don't know if he's your consistent backup point guard. I think he can come in 12 minutes in a pinch and play defense. I don't think there's any question about that. But this dude's not a starting caliber point guard. He's not. And
no,
all due respect to him, because he was a difference maker in Game 3, for sure. I thought Game 2 was more Steph Curry missing shots, but I really thought Game 3, Matthew Dellavedova did a terrific job. Game 3, both scoring the bat, providing an offensive punch from a guard position, and chasing around screens for the first 3 quarters. But he's not a starting caliber point guard.
I really, really like that question of what's going to be the worst contract this offseason. And I want to think about that more, because it probably will be J.R. Smith, just because of the amount of money he's going to get, and we all know what he is. It's not like, and talk about a guy, making money in the finals, which was Tristan Thompson, of course, and, J.R. Smith might have hurt his value, but Cleveland's going to keep him. And, all right, real quick, and then we're going to go back to the finals, and then we have to move on. But, now, this is the inside, and thank you, Jalen and Jacoby, for this one on Grantland. LeBron got mad at Miami and left because LeBron James was taking less money for the Heat to spend it on guys around him so they can win, and they let his best friend Mike Miller walk, and they cut him because of money.
Correct.
That was what started the stuff in Miami, okay? Cleveland is dumb, but they're not this dumb. They're not going to let the guys LeBron traded for, which is what happened. LeBron took 2 weeks off and made trades. That's fine. Okay? They're not going to let – no, it's fine. They're not going to let the guys LeBron traded for, the Cavs, Mike Millers, walk away. And they're going to keep J.R. Smith at whatever he wants, and it's going to be, especially with the new, money kicking in next year, giving J.R. Smith $8 million a year again now isn't going to be as bad as it was the first time around because of the cap.
J.R. has a player, though. So J.R. is just going to take his player. He won't be the problem. Timothy Mozgov is the problem.
But then, and then even next offseason, J.R. the same situation. They'll J.R. is going to capitalize. That's fine, and they're going to keep him. They're going to keep him on. Shumpert's also a free agent, no? I think so.
I believe so. And he lost himself a ton of money. Cleveland's going to get a steal on him. He lost himself a ton of money by not being able to put the ball in the basket on offense.
But I think he was good enough this playoffs. Good enough. Now, finish that sentence on your own. You know where I'm going. But if you remember, Iman Shumpert was maybe 2 years ago when the Knicks were good, had the value of a first-round pick from Oklahoma City, a mid-20s first-round pick. Now they traded Iman Shumpert to get rid of J.R. Smith. that was how much his value has shrunk.
Yes.
So speaking of Dellavedova, he was getting all the talk, right? In Game 3, if you don't remember, Delly got a hard screen. It was the beginning of Game 3. Got a nice little shoulder from Draymond Green on a screen, and that happens every time. And he got knocked down, and Draymond Green was facing the basket and had his back to Dellavedova, and Dellavedova dove from the ground into Draymond Green's legs and knocked him over. Now, I don't know how much Draymond Green acted, but it was a good acting job, and it was a very intentional dive at the legs by Dellavedova, and that play was dirty. Now, if you want to go with the other ones, they are iffy, and he closed his legs around Taj Gibson in Chicago. That's fine. You don't want to give fine. But this one was dirty, and nobody talked about it, and I'm talking about it. Clearly intentional, and because he was the story, because he was one of the big storylines of the finals, because the games kind of sucked, and the Warriors weren't going to carry the storyline, the first 3 games, they didn't want to talk about Dellavedova's dirty play the same way they talked about him being quote-unquote dirty or on the line of dirty earlier in the playoffs, and that drives me nuts.
I don't know how much it was of that. I think it was more of the fact that Dellavedova was a great story at the time, and it's not the fact that it's the fact that we love to see the underdog, and it doesn't matter who the underdog is, but America loves the underdog. And Matthew Dellavedova was the definition of the underdog, going up against the MVP one-on-one, going up against the Golden State Warriors, who were the best team all season long. I think people kind of just want to neglect it. Yeah, he has a couple dirty plays, but as a general rule, this dude just hustles all the time. You can live with a couple dirty plays. Maybe the rest of the NBA can't. For some unbeknownst reason, they seem to forget that hustle is a thing. But you can live with a couple dirty plays as a head coach. You can live with a couple of times a guy gets a little too aggressive and bumps into someone a little hard, because this dude is first to the floor all the time. As a coach, I would love to see that. While we're on coaching, you wanted to bring up David Blatt, and let's do that really quick because according to my timer, we're way over the quota.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
So let's do Blatt really quick. Blatt's probably gone because of all the stuff that's come out with LeBron James.
Yeah.
But at some point, LeBron's got to tell somebody who he wants, because David Blatt did a terrific job with this team all season long. He maximized a lot of guys on that bench, Dellavedova being first and foremost, but Timothy Mozgov turned into a beast. Tristan Thompson turned into a beast. For the majority of the postseason, JR was what you thought he was going to be. People are going to focus on the finals, but for the majority of the postseason, JR really contributed, as did Iman Shumpert. I don't know what LeBron wants out of his head coach, because David Blatt, he had a couple rookie mistakes, but he maximized talent. What more do you want?
Yep, Blatt almost fired himself in that Chicago series when he called timeout. They lose that game, and that would have been down 3-1.
Oh yeah. Oh no question.
And that he would have fired himself. That was him
No question, and people are going to fixate on that when they talk about why Blatt should be fired. But the bottom line is it basically looks like LeBron James either now the question is, of course, does LeBron want Tom Thibodeau? Does he want that kind of guy? Does he want a guy that he's familiar with, that he's been a part of on USA Basketball, or that he's been a part of in another setting? Because it seems like LeBron, the only coaches in the last 5-6 years or so that LeBron has been truly thrilled with are the guys that he's worked with for USA Basketball. That's it.
Yep, Coach K, and yeah.
So unless he's making a push for one of those guys, I don't get it.
Right. Blatt also, real quick, I rewatched Game 6, the end of Game 6, and the Cavs were coming back. This is before the comeback, before J.R. Smith actually went nuts and was like cha-ching, cha-ching at the end of the game, right? That was literally all I heard as he was making shots.
Right.
That didn't matter. Blatt, with 3:30 left in that game, went to the Haka Iggy. Okay? And they were like down 10-ish, and that was a good time to try to use it for about a minute before you can't, whatever. He intentionally fouled Iguodala when they had a foul to give. And Steve Kerr goes, okay, come here, Iggy, and sits him down, and now that's over. Your margin for error in that, this is like your last, like try. But this is it. Like, you've emptied out the book. Like, this is it. All right, let's go to, this is it. If this doesn't work, we're done, right? And he does it with a foul. Jordan, they just like, oh, yeah, Steve Kerr, they showed him his hand.
I agree 100%, and I thought Blatt did a really poor job of coaching the NBA Finals.
I agree.
But again,
I'm nitpicking, but
again, no, I actually don't think you are. I didn't think David Blatt did a terrific job of managing the NBA Finals. But again, that is a rookie head coach. As much as success as he had in international ball, this is his first year in the NBA. He's a rookie head coach. And you know who has more NBA experience between the two of them? Steve Kerr, by a gazillion miles.
Yep.
Steve Kerr was a smart player. Steve Kerr played for some of the best coaches that have ever coached this game. He's gotten tips from those coaches. He was a great GM for the Suns.
He was.
Really did a good job of building up that Suns team. And now he was a successful head coach. David Blatt was on the short end of the stick, right, in terms of who was going to outcoach who in this series. I thought that from the get-go. So I wasn't particularly shocked. Again, let Blatt get the second year. Let's see if David Blatt can learn from the mistakes he made and make some adjustments. That won't happen because LeBron's going to have him fired, in my opinion. But I think Blatt deserves the second. I really think Blatt deserves the second year.
Yeah, and no, he deserves it. That doesn't mean he's going to get it.
Right.
So here's what's going to happen, and I believe what I quoted before from the Heat might have been from Brian Windhorst, not Jalen and Jacoby. Okay, sorry. This is also because Brian Windhorst is great. If you actually listen to him on podcasts or SportsCenter, he can't really go into this kind of stuff, but him on anything on Grantland or any ESPN podcast, he really goes into the dynamic between LeBron and a team from Miami and what's been going on behind the scenes in Cleveland. And if you remember last year, LeBron as a free agent disappeared for 10 days and held up the entire NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's over a week. That's a long time in free agent days. That's not just 10 days. That's like a month for free agency of how everyone had to wait. Okay. He's going to be a free agent again this year. He's going to disappear again. Maybe not for as long because I don't think he's leaving Cleveland ever again. But he's going to pretend he can, and he physically can, but he's not actually. He knows it'll be too much of a hit to what he's trying to do to leave. He's not going to leave. But he likes being in control, and that's fine. He's going to disappear. He's going to be passive-aggressive again and not say anything, and it's not right, and it's not the way I think it should be played out. But this is what's probably going to happen. LeBron James is not going to say anything. And he might not come back until Blatt is fired. That might be what then brings him out of being disappeared. He's going to go on vacation, quote unquote, and not be done with vacation until, right, that could be how this plays out, and that's not right for the Cavs, but that's
I get
what
that.
they have to
I
do.
get that. I think we'll just not do it as soon as he can. LeBron wants to get the max contract.
Hey, Jordan, you're breaking up. Say that all again.
I think that you got me now?
Yeah. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I think that LeBron James is just going to accept this player, and I think he's just going to, because he wants his new contract when the new CBA rolls around next year, and that's when he'll make the most money. So I think he's just going to accept this player and move on. But I could see him taking a couple months off for personal reasons and basically waiting until the Cavs make a decision to what to do with David Blatt.
Yeah,
but I don't think he can wait that long because his buddy seems to be wanting to be a free agent and play outside of Miami, and that's Dwayne Wade.
Okay.
If he wants to convince Dwayne Wade to come to Cleveland, he's got to be present.
Yep. LeBron loses all leverage if he opts in. So he's not leaving. But I just think he's going to opt out and then retake the max 1 year again, which is another extra $1 million, whatever it is, right? It always goes up because the rules, how it works. But, so technically he's going to make more money than he would have if he opted in, but it's not by a lot. He's going to take another 1-1, so then you're right. He can hit the max contract when it's the max a couple years from now. But
Joey, the best player in the NBA never loses leverage when he makes any financial decision. He can opt into this player and just say, I'm going to be a free agent next year. Show me what you guys can do and see if I'll stay. Do I think he is ever going to plan on leaving? No, I don't. But LeBron never loses leverage because he's LeBron James, because he's the best player in the world by about 1,000 miles, because he can affect a game the way nobody else can. So he never loses leverage.
Okay. Dwayne Wade, real quick. Dwayne Wade's not leaving Miami, and this is all cute. And, yeah, he slipped on national TV, and that might have been intentional, and that's a genius move. I don't believe Dwayne Wade will ever play for someone else. It's the same way with Dirk and the Mavs, and I'll explain why in a second. It's the same way with Duncan and the Spurs. It's the same way with Kobe and the Lakers, even though that one has the quickest or shortest leash on it. Dwayne Wade is going to be taken care of well after he's done playing basketball. The same way Dirk Nowitzki is going to be taken care of by Mark Cuban, and the same way Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett in Minnesota is going to be taken care of when they're done playing basketball. And that's what this is about. Dwayne Wade cannot fray that relationship with the Miami Heat because of, and it'd be very interesting if he did. And on the surface, it really looks like, holy crap, like this, he might actually be playing for another team next year. I'll believe it when ink goes to paper and not even just something verbal. Because
I agree. I agree.
The Heat. Okay, good. So let's leave that there. We've gone 40 minutes on, smorgasbord stuff, and that's great. 2 rapid-fire questions. They are the first one is a yes or no. Do you think Blatt is the coach next year?
He is a coach in the NBA?
No. Do you think okay, very good. Do you think he's the coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers next year?
No, I don't.
Okay. And this one you can give a sentence about it. Do you think the NBA is going to change the hack of whoever rule?
No, I don't, because it's a strategy that I think that all teams can employ late in games, and if you take too much strategy out of defensive play, it just becomes an offensive game.
Correct. If you read what I wrote back in April, I said that I thought they were going to change it, and I didn't like it. And now I really am a bigger fan of Adam Silver. He's not going to change it, I don't believe, because of the way he says it only affects 2 players, 80% of the time, and that is correct. You don't change a rule for 2 players out of 350. Okay, NBA draft this Thursday. It only took us 40 minutes, Jordan. Not bad. We planned for 15 and we hit 40. That's not bad. We're going to go a little over an hour. NBA draft this Thursday, 7 p.m. ESPN. My mock draft. I have my mock draft 1.0 up. I'm doing a fan-operated mock draft thanks to your idea for the NFL one where people get to take over a team and then pick for them, and then we go in order, and that's going to be a mock draft. That'll be up Tuesday or Wednesday. depending on when that gets up and I get to put that together, I'm trying to have a 2.0 up, depending on my work schedule for Thursday before the draft. So stay tuned for all that. This podcast will be up, but you'll be listening to it, so you'll know it's up. But let's go into the draft. All right. I'm going to start this, and then we'll run with it, and we're going to talk about a very cool piece on 538 that gives some really cool in-depth statistics. But I listened to Bill Simmons because I miss him. I just poured some of my coffee out for him. The 2014 draft, he did a whole bunch of podcasts, and one thing I took away was very interesting, and it's very true in all drafts, not just NBA drafts. He says, don't underestimate teams picking the, quote, safe player just because that will lead to the least amount of criticism and maybe will keep them from losing their job, will keep a official from losing their job, a GM or a coach or whatever. Now, whether that's right or wrong, especially in places like New York, I think that is what this pick screams. They should take a chance, and that's why they might move back, because you get this pick wrong, you might not have a job soon. But I think New York is the prime example, the Knicks, this year, of taking a player that leads to the least amount of criticism, especially with the criticism they've gotten over the past, calendar year since Phil has been there.
I agree with that. I think the Knicks are probably the team that everybody's going to fixate on the most. But the Lakers have equally as much pressure in this draft because the Lakers superstar is basically on his way to retirement, whereas the Knicks superstar, and I'll put superstar in quotations for him because I think he actually needs to win a few more playoff series before he gets into that top 5, top 7 category. But the Knicks superstar has 4 seasons left. So I actually think the Lakers are a team with probably more pressure to make sure that they don't screw this up. You got to pick in the top 5. I don't believe in trading down in the NBA draft. I get it in the NFL. In the NFL, you can get other assets. You can get future picks. I get trading down in the NFL. In the NBA, if you pick in the top 5, you need to pick in the top 5 because the top 10 talent in an NBA draft compared to moving backward to, like, say, the 12 is actually significant. That's the difference between getting a starter that can be a star and a role player that you really hope peaks as a starter.
Yep. So the Lakers, and I have them taking Jahlil Okafor, and I will have them taking Jahlil Okafor as long as I'm doing mock drafts. They have. Well, they'll take whatever big guy falls, but I think Minnesota's going to take Karl Anthony Towns when it's all said and done, and that means the Lakers will take Okafor. Now, is that the right thing they should do? I don't. Not that I don't like Okafor, but I agree with the idea that we just watched an NBA Finals where the league is getting away from big guys, and Okafor is a center. He is like, you can't play him at, quote, power forward, or I don't think that's the best place to use him. So
I don't know, Joe. Just to interrupt real quick, I don't know if the NBA is getting away from big guys. I really just think that the Warriors brand of basketball fit not having a true low post scorer. I don't think the NBA is getting away from the idea of a low post scorer. What I think they're forming towards is the idea of a stretch 4, the idea of someone that can step it out to 20 feet and score the basketball, someone that can take you off the dribble one-on-one and create for themselves. I think that's more of where the NBA is going.
I totally agree. That was just a look at the finals on what happened, but if Memphis was in the finals, as people said, would we be talking about, small ball? And the answer is no. I mean, Memphis isn't going to change the way they play. So Jahlil Okafor, the Lakers like their big guy, and they've already said that they like whichever one of those two doesn't go. I also believe that they should, so that's why the Lakers are going to take Okafor. Like, I think that's a pretty sure thing. If Okafor is there, they're going to take him. Now, I don't think he can play next to Randall. I don't think that's an NBA championship front line of Randall and Okafor just because of the lack of defense. I could be wrong, but that's the way I'm looking at it. I think they should take D'Angelo Russell and let him learn from Kobe and then run the show next year. And I think him and Jordan Clarkson could play next to each other. I think that could work, even if, Jordan Clarkson, who's a nice player, maybe is your guy off the bench. I think D'Angelo Russell, I really like D'Angelo Russell, and I think he fits better there. But like I said, I think they're going to take Okafor.
That's a popular pick, Russell, to the Lakers. I think they're trying to build buzz out of D'Angelo Russell so that they actually get the Knicks to move up for the two. There is no secret that Phil Jackson's favorite player in this draft is D'Angelo Russell, and he's going to do, in my opinion, he's going to do whatever it takes to draft D'Angelo Russell, to have him run the show for the triangle offense. I think the Lakers are building buzz around that because they want to tempt the Knicks to move up. The Lakers' target in free agency is Rajon Rondo. I don't think there's any secret about that. So where are you going to play D'Angelo Russell if Rajon Rondo's coming in on a 4-year deal? You don't have a place for him because he's not a 2. He's not a 2 guard. He is a 1. He's a 1. He's a point guard that can initiate your offense. Playing him as 2 seems pretty useless to me. So I agree with you. I think that the 1-2 in this draft is Karl-Anthony Towns and Jahlil Okafor. I wish I had a spot to put my mock up. I used to do NBA mocks all the time. Now being
you could throw it on my site.
Now being full-blown NFL, maybe I'll do that. No. Now being full-blown NFL mock draft aficionado. My site, by the way, shameless plug, is draftstock.net. You mentioned it when you brought up the fan-operated mock draft. But being full-blown NBA aficionado, I don't get to do this as much anymore,
Now, we'll talk after. We'll talk off, but I've been, between us and our good friend Tim Schultz, who I saw his site up there, he was pushing a little bit. We should just team together, and I know you have your NFL one, but for everything else, we should get something else up. We'll talk. I think that could be.
Sounds good.
Philly. This is why I like the NBA draft. And the NFL this year was a little up in the air too, but you kind of know who's going to go. I don't go as in depth as you, so I'm sure that there's this team might do this, and if they do this, then this happens. That's always how it goes. But Philly at 3, I have Moutier there, and this was done a long time ago, and I think that Philly is going to choose between Moutier and Porzingis, and here's why. And we're going to get to the overseas guys, so try not to talk about them too much. We're going to have our own little chat about them. But Philly just got the news of Embiid, and I actually did my mock draft before that Embiid might be sitting out another year, and whether that's precautionary or whatever, that that doesn't just come out like for fun. That's not what Philadelphia wants their fan base to be hearing, right? So it's not like that's made up, okay? So does Philly really want to win 4 extra games next year and have the 5th pick instead of the 2nd pick again? Right? I don't think so. I think D'Angelo Russell is going to fall to the Knicks like where they are because the Sixers don't want as an NBA ready now guy. Right? That's why I think Moutier is just younger and less developed than Russell, but has the potential. And Porzingis is even younger and less developed than Moutier. So I think that's why the Sixers are choosing between Moutier and Porzingis. And if they don't go Moutier, Moutier is going to slide to the Kings at 6, which is also a great, their best case scenario. But the Sixers, what do you think?
I agree that the Sixers are between Porzingis and Moutier, but I actually think it's more because I think they like Moutier better. They need a guy that can score the ball, that can get to the rim, and can attack an opposing team's defense, and Moutier does that better than D'Angelo Russell.
Yep.
I think Moutier makes more sense for them schematically. However, I think the Kristaps Porzingis should be the obvious pick because Nerlens Noel does not add a scoring punch on offense, and even if Joel Embiid can come back, which right now is a question mark in and of itself, he doesn't add a scoring punch on offense. Porzingis, his ceiling, when people say his ceiling is Dirk Nowitzki, they're not kidding. He's that good offensively.
Agreed.
He could be the best player in this draft. Of course, whenever we mention overseas players, we need to talk about overseas players' floor, and that floor is Andrea Bargnani. And we've seen what Andrea Bargnani can do with a ton of talent, which is absolutely nothing.
Which is make great vines. Go ahead.
Right.
That is Bargnani's contribution to the world right now, is making great lines when he can't dunk. Go ahead.
Yes, I think that Porzingis is the third overall pick. Lands Russell falling in the Knicks' lap at 4, and that's actually my top 4 of Towns, Okafor, Porzingis, and Russell. I think the team that is going to basically make or break this draft, because you hinted at that about the NFL, that they always have one team at the top that makes or breaks the draft and sort of falls dominoes. I think that's the Sacramento Kings. And it's not because of who they could take. It's because of who they could trade. There's this rumor that's picking up traction that the Kings could deal Boogie Cousins.
No way, really? Go ahead. Oh, my God, how did I not?
And it would make a ton of sense if this trade was to Denver. Denver wants to get rid of Ty Lawson.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Kings could use... Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. No, I saw a rumor, Who Sports, or just trying to cite my sources, that Lawson and what Denver has 7, Lawson and 7 to
and Kenneth
Kings
Faried
for 6. Okay,
and Kenneth Faried for Boogie and 6
for the 6th pick. But okay, no, go ahead. So wait, say that again. What's the Boogie trade potential?
Lawson, Faried, and 7 for Boogie and 6. The reason why this makes a lot of sense for both teams. We already know why this makes sense for the Kings. George Karl knows Ty Lawson. George Karl knows Kenneth Faried. George Karl doesn't like Boogie Cousins. Mike Malone likes to play half court. Doesn't need Ty Lawson. Doesn't need Kenneth Faried. Loves Boogie Cousins. Okay, we know why the players make sense. We know why the players make sense. The reason why the pick now makes sense is because as much as Emmanuel Mudiay is an up-tempo point, what if Emmanuel Mudiay is the guy the Knicks take it for? What if D'Angelo Russell is sitting there at 6? Now you've got a guy to captain your half-court offense.
You blew my mind. All right, so my initial reaction to that, I forgot, and I love this. Now this makes it even more likely that Malone got hired in Denver, who was the former Kings coach, and now the former Nuggets coach, George Karl, is in Sacramento. Holy crap. Right. Okay. But a deal is going to happen between these two. There's too much. I like this guy, you don't like this guy, we like this guy, which you don't like. The flip is going to happen. I agree with you. And I don't like, real quick before you keep going, I don't like to buy into these pre-draft player trades because they don't often happen. Remember, for the last 2 years, the guy that's supposed to have been traded was Al Jefferson, and it never happened. I don't like to buy into these per se, but this one just seems to make way too much sense on both sides. Now, my initial reaction is, I think Boogie, so it makes sense. I just think the Kings could get so much more than a Denver core that doesn't win games in Denver, right? Like no. But so here's my thing. The Kings are moving down and losing their best. If they do this version of it, there's going to be more pieces moving, and there might be a third team, and that'll make things better. But right. So like a Kings would be trading Boogie Cousins, and it's only one spot higher, but a first-round pick to get back a first-round pick one spot lower and 2 guys that couldn't win in Denver. That's all. I get it. I think the Kings could, like Boston would give the Kings 2 first-round picks and Isaiah Thomas. That's funny. He go back still, but and maybe a Marcus Smart. Like the Kings could still get more than this, which is why there's going to be like that why that trade hasn't just happened yet.
Let's do that. Let's look at it this way though, Joe. You put Ty Lawson in there, and you put Kenneth Faried in that lineup. Lineup is now Lawson, whoever plays at shooting guard, Rudy Gay, Kenneth Faried, and if they bring in
Cauley Stein,
if they bring in Miles Turner, this team is built for George Karl. That is George Call's fantasy team, where they can sprint up and down the floor, constantly run. George Call finally has a real, true rim protector if they were to draft Cauley Stein, not someone who pretends like they play basketball in JaVale McGee.
Oh, I was going to say, you're not talking about Boogie. Oh, my God. Okay. Oh, I just don't care.
No. Okay. You're talking to one of Boogie's biggest fans, so no.
Okay,
but they can sprint up and down the floor, and that's exactly what George Karl wants to do. Flip the script. You'll have Nurkic and Cousins down low for a half-court offensive set team in Mike Malone. That's basically exactly what he wants, because you've got two guys that can post up on opposite blocks. You could basically play a 3-around-2. And Lord knows the Nuggets have enough shooters between Gallinari and Chandler and Randy Foye and Gary Harris. They got enough shooters to come in and knock down open shots. That's basically exactly what Mike Malone wants. This seems like a perfect trade on the surface.
I cringed. I don't think Denver would. I think Denver would be a part of this trade, and they would take the assets from Boston, for example. So they would send their players to Sacramento, right? Sacramento would send Boogie to Boston, right? And then Denver would
Boston sends their assets back to Denver. Hey, look, Denver would make out like a bandit in that deal.
Right.
That would make a ton of sense. But this trade just as a whole, with a third team just coming in and kicking around a few guys that help make the money work, that happens all the time, and then they get compensated with a first-round pick. That happens a ton.
Right.
Philadelphia did that in one of the trade deadlines. That happens a lot. So I could see that happening as well. You can, when I get a chance, maybe after the draft, I'm going to go on the trade machine and do this trade, and I'm going to put it on my website. Because this is like prime time. Like this is great. All right. So we went through the Knicks. It would be great if the Knicks were sitting there with Russell and Moutier on the board. Orlando, I had them taking Porzingis. That was like a really good fit for them, I thought, next to Vucevic. But it's looking like Porzingis isn't going to make it there. So now Justice Winslow seems like the perfect, even though I like Justice Winslow, and that'll be a good transition where Justice Winslow would be a good fit on that team. But he's the same player as Oladipo and Payton, right? Like defensive heavy, can't really shoot. Well, if we look at the 538 chart, they have Justice Winslow as the second best player for projected statistical plus-minus in years 2 to 5 of their career, and has one of the better odds of being like a starter, using these things to determine that if he's going to be a starter, role player, or bust. Assist percentage, offensive rebounding percentage, two-point shot attempts, usage rate, shooting efficiency, and steal percentage in college. And then they go on to say, real quick before I throw this to you, that Winslow is fascinating. Quote, his overall projection is better than what the model gives to both mega-hyped wings from last year's draft, Wiggins and Parker, although it's driven not so much by doing as by the low likelihood that he will be a bust. If you haven't read the 538 article that Joe just quoted and you enjoy the NBA draft process, you need to go look at it, because it's a really interesting article in the way they came up with their stats. It's called Projecting the Top 50 Players in the 2015 NBA Class. Justice Winslow gets the quote-unquote left-handed LeBron James argument because of how big he is physically. Justice Winslow is going to be a stud. He is going to be a star. Yep. He can play defense immediately. His shot will become more consistent, but he can get to the rim at will. And you saw what an impact he had when Duke went up against the better teams in the NCAA tournament, and they bogged down on offense. And you saw that Justice Winslow could take it to any team one-on-one and just say go. That is a big bonus to have in the NBA. I think Winslow would be a perfect replacement for Tobias Harris, who is all but surely leaving Orlando.
Maybe for the Knicks.
Justice Winslow could start right away. I have the Magic going with Cauley Stein because I think that if you have the opportunity to take two dominant big men, not only that, but two that complement each other, Vucevic's offensive game, Cauley Stein's defensive game, that looks a lot like the Twin Towers in Memphis for not that much longer, since I'm pretty sure the Marc Gasol will leave.
Oh, wow.
But that looks a lot like their recipe.
You mentioned how the league is going more towards a stretch four than that. I just don't think it fits in Orlando that way. They would do it, and then maybe if I don't know how many years Vucevic has left, maybe look at trading him right before his next contract. If that's the path they think that the Magic might take, then doing that for a year makes sense. But the Magic are like the team. They got a new coach, Scott Skiles. They're like now the team that's like, all right, we're trying to make the playoffs next year. Like, we're announcing it to the world. Because they've been out of the playoffs.
And Justice Winslow makes a lot of sense for a team that has been developing young talent and now wants to make that push in the next couple of years. Because Winslow can give you a 1-2-3 that you are set with. Because Peyton looks like he'll be your starting point guard. Oladipo, I think next year really comes into his own. And Justice Winslow will have an immediate impact on whatever team he goes to.
Okay.
So I like that. I like that from the sense, but I also think that the Magic could use a rim protector, and I think that Cauley Stein would be a good addition to them as well.
Yep. All right, we're gonna finish out like the lottery at least, and then now that you brought up Mark, you're bringing up all these free agent guys now, and that some of them are leaving. So I want to do off-season rapid fire, and it's gonna have to be real quick because we're we're pushing time. Who cares? But now it's gonna be fun to see where we think how we differ on where people are going. So now if nobody trades,
let's do the lottery first, and then we'll do the off-season rapid fire because there are two guys that we didn't mention in the back end lottery because we've basically gotten the top 6 players in this draft between Moutier, Russell, Porzingis, Okafor, Towns, and Winslow, and then you've got Cauley Stein as the 7th. Mario Hezonja is one of the best players in this draft that nobody is talking about.
Yep. All right, so let's
he can do it all on offense. Absolutely dynamic scorer. He's going to transition incredibly well to the NBA, and somebody is going to get him in the 8 to 14 range, and just they could be the winners of the draft.
I can't see him falling past Charlotte. Yeah,
I can't either. That's actually where I have him. I have him at Charlotte.
But I think Detroit would be silly to pass up on him. But I think Detroit goes Stanley Johnson. Wow, Stanley Johnson, because of the relationship he has with Reggie Jackson and Drummond, and they're trying to keep Drummond happy so that he resigns, so they don't have to completely rebuild, right? So I think it makes sense too. Stanley Johnson has the potential to be that stretch 4 if he gets bigger, right? Like he can hold his own if the league goes to that stretch 4 kind of mentality, and he can really score. So he's going to give the Pistons some of that outside scoring. I think he makes sense there. And then Mario Hezonja. I think Denver should take Mario Hezonja, but I think they have too many like Danilo Gallinari, and they might be a little scared off by that.
I think they could because Gallinari is a free agent soon. Wilson Chandler's a free agent soon. I think they could, but I think their target is Justice Winslow. If Winslow is there, I think they're taking Winslow and running. If he's not, then Hezonja becomes in play. Continuing down this board, I know you mentioned that Stanley Johnson goes to the Pistons. I think that's probably very likely. I had Moutier fall there, so of course I've got to stick Moutier there with Brandon Jennings being. With Brandon Jennings being upcoming free agent. Yeah, I had Moutier falling to the Pistons just because the Magic take Cauley Stein, and then this trade happens. With this trade happening, the Nuggets don't need it. The Nuggets don't really need a point guard, as my dog in the background freaks out, which anybody with a dog knows what that's like.
Oh yeah.
I had this trade going down, and the Nuggets now need a point guard that can play in the half-court set. Kyle Lawson, that's not Emmanuel Mudiay. they're going to have to find their point guard somewhere else. Moutier is not a half-court set guy. If Russell was there, okay, great, but he's not. So they're going to have. So they have to address something else. And I had them at the 6 draft Justice Winslow, which at the 7 lands the Kings needing a big man, and the Kings take Miles Turner. And that's how Moutier sort of fell to the 8 for me. But going further along in the draft, Devin Booker is a really interesting guy. Devin Booker dominated the NBA Combine. He played on a team with a ton of talent in Kentucky, so he never really got to showcase himself. People that think Devin Booker is only a shooter are really misinformed. He can create for himself. He just never had to do it in Kentucky because they had a ton of guys that could create for himself. So he had to play off the ball, and he had to play as a spot-up shooter. Devin Booker can create for himself. He is a true shooting guard that can score. I think he's going to go in the top 11, top 12 picks in this draft.
Yeah. I had him sliding in mine only because I really didn't know too much about him, and I now believe, I agree that he is going to, since this has been made, I've heard the same things you have, and I think he goes higher. The Heat at 10 could go Booker, but I think they would want a replacement for Luol Deng, and at this point in the draft, no one's really there that could do that. Maybe a Kelly Oubre, but the Heat.
I actually did have the Heat go in Devin Booker. You read my mind. But let's assume they want a Luol Deng replacement for a second.
Even if they do, go ahead.
This would be a team that makes sense to move backwards.
Correct.
And slide down to the 15, 16, 17 range and pick up an asset or two. I think Atlanta is the prototypical team to move up in this draft because there are a number of guys in the 11, 12, 13, 14 range that might go before them that can really benefit their team, that could step in and replace DeMar Carroll. Stanley Johnson is the first name that comes to mind. Or if Paul Millsap were to leave, that could step in and replace Paul Millsap. And again, the first guy that comes to mind there is Trey Lyles.
Yep. I have the Heat taking Miles Turner. They're really in the best player available. Like I said, they would probably prefer a wing, so they might move back. But if they don't, kind of best player. And Miles Turner is an interesting. I think he's more of a center as the league is going. Pretty good rim protector, rebounder, can stretch the floor. So he's kind of like a 4 or 5 tweener, which you usually don't get a lot. And then Indiana. I still can't believe they're going to take Campaign, but I really like Campaign out of Murray State. I watched him in college and was like, this guy, I really like.
They could use a point guard because I think that George Hill probably needs to start playing 28 minutes a game. I think 32 is just way too much. But they also need a true shooting guard. If Devin Booker were available, I think he makes the most sense for Indiana. If Mario Hezonja were available, I think he makes the most sense for Indiana because they need a true shooting guard. I think the Jazz after that, the Jazz are the team that basically everybody has just assumed is going to take Frank Kaminsky. It just seems to make too much sense because they need front court depth. They need a scoring punch in the front court between Favors and Gobert, and that's exactly what Frank Kaminsky can add. That seems to be too much of a match made in heaven to not happen, which, of course, if you pay attention to the back end of the NBA lottery, means that there is no way that the Utah Jazz are going to draft Frank Kaminsky. I had them going Frank Kaminsky anyway, but that seems to be the pick there. I had Cameron Payne going to the Suns. This is your boy in Campaign.
Wow.
He could be an excellent addition for that Phoenix Suns team because he'll push the tempo, he plays fast as it is, and he allows Bledsoe to play both the 1 and the 2. So if Bledsoe wanted to, if they wanted to sit Bledsoe, Cameron Payne could go be the 1. If they wanted to kick Bledsoe to the 2 for a couple of sets, for a couple times down the floor, Bledsoe can go to the 2, Cameron Payne's the 1. Bledsoe can stay at the 1, and Cameron Payne can come off the bench. I think that he provides a lot of depth for the Suns that they currently don't have at point guard.
Yeah, the Suns, was it last year they went Tyler Ennis?
Might have been last year.
So they recently went point guard in the first round, and they recently traded Isaiah Thomas and Goran Dragic, and they got back Brandon Knight, who now they like better than Bledsoe, and Knight is really a point guard, I think. I think he's best with well, you could play him off the ball, but I think they already tried the point guard experiment.
Right, the Suns went Ennis, by the way, 18th last year. You nailed that, so go ahead.
Yeah, so for them to take another point guard here, I don't know. I think they go big to try to play next to, but either way, the Jazz are, real quick, and then we'll go to, because OKC is interesting too, but the Jazz, so they have their starting 5 in Exum, Alec Burks when he comes back, Gordon Hayward, Derek Favors in the Stifle Tower, right? And then their biggest bench guy is Rodney Hood, who played really well at the end of last year. So, like, they're looking for a guy, that can, a down low guy that can fill in and, run in with those 3. So it could be any of the power forwards. Trey Lyles, Bobby Portis is a little high, but Trey Lyles, Miles Turner, there's one more.
Frank Kaminsky.
Throw him in there.
If they wanted to take him that high, Kevon Looney, Montrezl Harrell, there are a lot of point guards in that 12 to 20 range. Watch out for Jarrell Martin. Jarrell Martin apparently has a mid-first round promise.
Wow.
It would actually make a lot of sense if that was from the Utah Jazz, because they need a power forward to spell Derek Favors. They need some size in the front court. It would make a lot of sense if Jarrell Martin's promise was from the Boston Celtics. The Celtics want to deal Jared Sullinger. That rumor came out of left field for me. But apparently Jared Sullinger is on his way out in Boston. Maybe Jarrell Martin goes there because I believe Olynyk and Zeller are both free agents at the end of this upcoming year. It would make a lot of sense if Jarrell Martin's promise was from the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks need some size in the front court off their bench, and Jarrell Martin can be that. A lot of people could misinform what 15 to 30 in the NBA draft is.
Right.
If you get a role player, a consistent role player that one day becomes a starter at a 15 to 30, you did your job. You did your job. The second round in the NBA draft is the most useless round of drafting, I think, maybe outside of the MLB draft as a whole, which is a crapshoot.
Yep.
You don't often get second-round players that come in and really affect the team. It's more often to get an undrafted guy that comes in and affects a team rather than a second-rounder.
Well, and the reason that's the case is because I think a lot of the second round, outside the first 10 picks of the second round, which are basically, kind of first-round talent go, right. Or draft and stash, which makes sense as to why players that aren't drafted have a better chance of working out, because the second-round picks are players that aren't going to come over for a couple years or may never come over.
Right.
So,
is there anybody you look at, quick, is there anybody you look at in the top of this draft and say he won't be what everyone thinks he is, that's going to be?
Ooh, I think, I like all these guys. I think, I think
mine's Emmanuel Mudiay. Just throwing it out there.
But I don't go against Larry Brown, man, and that's a big endorsement for Larry Brown.
True.
To say he's like the best point guard he's ever seen. But I agree. There's a chance Mudiay never fills into what people think. Like, just go into the list, right? Karl Anthony Towns really is going to be what we think. Four is going to be. The only
reason why I'm saying Emmanuel Mudiay is because it would not shock me if Emmanuel Mudiay's ceiling is Brandon Jennings.
Yeah.
Brandon Jennings is a nice point guard. Brandon Jennings is one of the better half point guards in the league. Brandon Jennings is not a guy you build a team around.
Right.
It wouldn't shock me if that's Emmanuel Mudiay.
Yep. I like Porzingis. I think he's gonna be a starter. I think Cauley Stein might fizzle out. I know he's really good defensively and can guard, any position. That offensive game is sometimes hard to come by, like for a big guy that could put him in an interesting position. He'll be in the league. There's definitely a spot for him in the NBA.
When you can play defense, there's a spot for you in any basketball team.
Correct. All right, so we kind of rounded out. I want to do this, and then Zocco's superfluous question, and then we'll do rapid-fire off-season because we're already over an hour and 10 minutes. Okay, player from picks, 15 to 30, a player, we'll go with one, that you think will be the best player taken in that range. So,
Justin Anderson. Justin Anderson is a combo 2-3 lefty shooter from Virginia. I think he's physical. I think he can play defense. I think he attacks better than people realize. I think Justin Anderson is my guy.
I agree. I like Rashad Vaughn out of UNLV. Big guy, can score. I think it'll be a steal for whoever can get Rashad Vaughn, who needs wing help. I think he'll be able to defend, right?
Yeah.
With a big NBA ready body. His ceiling might be like a seventh guy on a winning team that comes in for 20 minutes a game and does the little things, and that's fine.
That's a big key stuff.
Threat. Right. All right, let's do. So this is great. Zocco's superfluous question. That's superfluous with a Z. Which of the top overseas prospects has the biggest bust potential? And this is between Porzingis, Hezonja, and Moutier, only because a lot of people don't know those. I know Moutier is from Texas, but he played overseas, so a lot of people may not have or probably haven't seen him. I'll throw it to you. Now, I don't.
Well, you said. Go ahead. You go first.
Ready. Okay. Well, I would bust is a strong word, and it's thrown around a lot because these guys you don't know them. I would probably go Moutier because he has such a high expectation, I think. So I think that makes the bust easier to say. Hezonja, I really like. Stud, shooter. I think he's going to be fine. So it might be Porzingis really being able to defend and never being a liability defensively and really just being a shooter that comes off the bench. I think that could be the problem with Porzingis, but I like him. And I know you're going to say Moutier, right?
That would be the answer. Make a lot of sense. I just said that I think Moutier is my bust.
Yeah.
But I actually think that if we're picking a guy with the biggest bust potential,
right,
it's Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah.
Anytime you get one of the big men coming over that stretches the floor and the big men look overseas, the immediate question is, can he play defense? Can he rebound? As much as Porzingis has tried to put a stop to that and say, I'm not soft, I take offense to the people that label me soft, you're going to have that label until you prove otherwise. So I think Porzingis probably has the most bust potential.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing I was watching some Porzingis tape and just YouTube videos. I'm not going to make it sound better than it is. And when he lands on a jump shot, if you just watch his feet, and it's worth it. If you have an extra minute, go watch Mario Hezonja Draft Express YouTube video. It's 10 minutes, and they go through what he does well, what he doesn't. It's really good. And Porzingis. If you watch Porzingis' feet when he lands, he does this backward shuffle like Dirk. And if you just put his feet underneath Dirk's body, it's Dirk Nowitzki. And I'm not saying he's going to be Dirk, but it's funny just to watch Porzingis' feet and be like, holy crap, that's the same footwork as Dirk. He's always
really
away.
That comparison is spot on. That Dirk Nowitzki, Kristaps Porzingis comparison. They have the same footwork in the low post. They have similar style games. And forget, when Dirk Nowitzki came over, he was a similar style build. He bulked up when he got to the U.S. and when he learned how to play the American game, and he learned what an emphasis defense and rebounding was, and he's never been a great defender. He's never really been a good defender, but he's adequate enough, and he rebounds the ball well enough that he becomes a menace offensively.
Yep. All right, so we are on an hour 20. Let's do rapid fire all-season questions, and then we'll probably get back together after the draft. I'm down. We'll pick a day, and we'll
Absolutely.
stuff. But okay, so this is we'll explain the ones that are you can have a sentence per, but we got to be quick. LeBron James player option, Cleveland next year, right?
Yes.
Okay. Marc Gasol unrestricted. I am 99% sure he's staying in Memphis, and I'll tell you why when you say he's not. Go ahead.
Marc Gasol is 99. I'm 99% sure he's leaving Memphis. He has been way too quiet about the whole situation for my liking. The only thing we've heard out of Marc Gasol is that he was unhappy with management, and that's it. I don't like that as a sign of promise.
I usually agree. Marc Gasol, this is his U.S. hometown. He came over when Pau was playing there, went to high school in Memphis. I think he is waiting to see what they do at Zebo. I think he comes back. I'm very sure he comes back, actually. LaMarcus Aldridge.
Gone. Absolutely gone.
Yeah.
He and Terry Stotts have had a building feud, and Stotts ain't going anywhere because they don't know what the situation of their team is going to be like. LaMarcus Aldridge is gone.
Where?
My gut tells me Boston. They've had been linked to him for a while. I would say two dark horse picks. The Knicks are a dark horse, obviously, because of how much money they have. And Atlanta is a dark horse if they lose Paul Millsap.
Okay. Yep. So just so I think it's going to be a Texas team. I think Dallas is very much in the running. I like San Antonio, who's been quiet, and they're gonna if they sit him down, they're getting him.
Yep.
And Houston has cap space with like one move. They are a sneaky team that they're not going to do anything.
They could.
Will have cap space, right? So I think it's going to be a Texas team. Let me just say this: if any of these free agents leave the team they're currently with, they throw away an extra year and about $20 million, depending on how long they've been in the league and all this other stuff. But on average, you can. So for LaMarcus Aldridge to leave Portland and go anywhere, it's a 4-year contract that's throwing away about a total of $20 million over 5 years. So that's the. I don't think
it matters for Aldridge because he'll get paid one more time. I think it might matter for Marc Gasol.
Okay. Well, then that would mean he would stay, right? He would take the money.
Right.
Okay. Kawhi Leonard restricted. He's in San Antonio.
Yep, not going anywhere.
Okay. Kevin Love, player option.
My gut tells me he accepts the player option. My head tells me he leaves.
Okay. I think he's taking the player option. But then L.A. next year is a strong possibility once Kobe's
Absolutely.
out. Jimmy Butler. Now, this is fun. The stuff on him has been fun, but we'll save it.
Jimmy Butler.
Back in Chicago.
Jimmy Butler is so interesting. You'd love to say, yeah, he goes and he tests his value, but I'm with you. I think he's back in Chicago. I think they match.
Well, both can happen. He can go test his value, and then Chicago says, nope.
Right. No.
So,
yeah, I think that he'll get an offer somewhere and Chicago will match.
Okay. Dwayne Wade, Miami.
I'm with you. I think he stays.
Okay.
I know you mentioned that earlier. I think he stays.
DeAndre.
I think DeAndre goes. I think that DeAndre is a little fed up with Chris Paul from everything that I've been hearing. And I think DeAndre can command some big money on the market, and I think he goes.
How about this? If he goes, it's going to be to a Texas team, so now they're fighting between LaMarcus and DeAndre. Excuse me. But DeAndre... That
would be really interesting. I actually think if DeAndre goes, I'm telling you right now, if DeAndre goes, watch out for the Celtics. They make too much sense.
Here's the thing. DeAndre is the perfect player, even if it is Boston, to take a 2-year deal with a third-year player and get the max.
And that's why Boston makes so much sense.
Correct. And then even Dallas does as well. And then take that money and then really hit the jackpot. Right? Here's some numbers that may not be for him, but are just to show you why a player would do that. DeAndre, if he takes whatever, 2 years with a player, whatever, $30, $40 million now, right? If he was to take a max now, it would be the 5-year 90, I believe, that Kyrie got, or around $100 million.
But that max is going up with the CBA.
If he does the 2-year and then takes a 5-year in 2017, it's something like 5-year 190. So it's something.
Yep.
It's a crazy amount more money. It makes a lot of sense for him to bet on himself in that regard. Tim Duncan, Spurs. I think he's coming back. He was too good.
I think Tim Duncan might retire. I know I'm in the minority there, in terms of the camp that says Tim Duncan might walk away without sort of going out on top. But I think Tim Duncan might retire. If he sees all of these power forwards coming on the market, it wouldn't shock me if San Antonio just decides, hey, look, at some point we got to go a different way, and we got a ton of big guys coming up. Maybe the time is now, and I don't think Tim Duncan would go play for another team. I think he would just walk away.
Yeah, I think no matter what, he comes back, and even if LaMarcus is there, Duncan could still start or come off the bench and play 20 minutes until the playoffs, and I think that is like
very possible.
Goran Dragic, Miami.
Staying. They already sent an offer out on the table. I think Miami. There's no way Miami's letting them leave.
Draymond Green. There's like 100. I think he's staying too. He's restricted, so Golden State will just match.
See, that's the key is he's restricted. Had he been unrestricted, I think there would be a 100% chance that he leaves. But because he's restricted and they can go over the cap a little bit to match, he stays. Right,
and then with the cap going up, and they have Curry on a very, very friendly deal. Klay Thompson will be on a decent deal next year, right? So it all, I think he stays. Brook Lopez, I think Brooklyn pays him, good, bad, or whatever. We'll get into that later. I think that he stays.
I think Brook Lopez could be a guy that you see move on draft day. I think they might want to make that someone else's problem in the sign and trade. At some point, the Nets need to blow this all up, and maybe it starts with Brook.
I agree. I don't think they can blow it up until 2017 when they might have a pick. But if they can get a pick for Brook Lopez, which isn't crazy to think if they get a future pick, that makes sense. I agree. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but they can't get worse now. They don't have their own pick. It's so true. Painful. We'll talk about the Nets later. It hurts. A couple more. Paul Millsap.
As much as this is going to pain our friend J.P. Lalamea, I think Paul Millsap's gone. I've been of the mindset that Kevin Love is going to leave, and if Kevin Love leaves, I think that LeBron's going to recruit Paul Millsap hard. Wow. And I think that even with how successful Tristan Thompson was, I think LeBron would gladly see Tristan Thompson walk out the door to bring in Paul Millsap.
Houston has a very good chance to get Kevin Love or Paul Millsap. Houston's going to be in the running for one of these power forwards if a shooter comes available.
I think they're going to get one of the lesser ones, though. I think that they wind up with Kevin Love would make sense because I don't know how much money he's going to make, but I think they're going to wind up with one of the lesser guys.
Right. And then LaMarcus Aldridge is a very interesting fit in Cleveland. That's been linked if Love does leave. What was I going to say? I'll think of it. Forget it. All right. 2 more. Greg Monroe.
He's a Knick. The end.
Yeah, I agree. Rajon Rondo.
Again, he's a Laker. The end. I think Rajon Rondo is an absolute lock for Los Angeles.
If Sacramento doesn't make that trade, they'll be bidding on him. But the best part of this is, and I might have said this somewhere else or I wrote it, the Lakers are going to be bidding against themselves, and they're still going to overpay him.
Yep, agreed, 100%. So,
those Lakers. The Knicks. Why isn't Rondo to the Knicks a bigger thing? Isn't there still him and Melo are friends? No.
Rondo to the Knicks isn't a bigger deal because the Knicks seem to be penciled into D'Angelo Russell. Now, if the Knicks draft Jahlil Okafor or Kristaps Porzingis, or for some reason wind up with Karl Anthony Towns, which we have to assume is a possibility, even though it's really not.
Yep.
If they go big man, Rajon Rondo to the Knicks is going to gain a lot of traction.
The Knicks might trade down.
Yeah, I just don't see it just because I think Russell's on the board, and I think Phil Jackson would have his guy sprint to the podium for D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah, that'll be the fastest pick in NBA
But
history.
I will say this, if Porzingis is the guy on the board, if Okafor, Towns, and Russell are gone, and Porzingis is the guy on the board, look for the Knicks to trade down just a little bit, because the Knicks' target then is going to become Justice Winslow.
Ooh, or Cauley Stein, but yes, I didn't think of Winslow.
Nope, just Justice Winslow. That's their guy. I think Justice Winslow is their fourth-rated player. I think they've done a great job of keeping it quiet. They hinted at it when they first thought of the idea to trade, when they first announced the idea to trade down. They hinted at Justice Winslow being one of their top guys. I think Winslow is their target because Winslow would play the 2 and Melo would play the 3. That is an imposing, physical 2 guys that can attack the basket and go. I really like that fit.
And the final note, you can always play Melo at the 4 and Winslow at the 3 and then play at the guard and have the flexibility. So like I said, we're going to end it after an hour and a half. Look for the fan-operated mock draft on the site. You can follow me at Joseph Zocco. You can follow Jordan at
Jordan Katz 11.
Very good. I should just look up your freaking Twitter. That would make this so much smoother.
6 1 half dozen the other.
Yeah. At Zoc Modern Life. Stay tuned for, like I said, the fan-operated mock draft, our next pod, which will probably be within the next week or 2. And yeah, Jordan, it's been real. Stay on the phone. We're going to talk quick about what I mentioned before. But thanks for coming on, and I'll definitely talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Sounds good. I look forward to the second podcast that we're going to do in a couple of weeks. And hopefully we get my mock draft up on your site because that seems like a really good avenue.
Will do. All righty. Thanks, man.